Welcome to the Liberty on the Land podcast. This is Curtis Stone with episode 10 with Jack Spirko. My guest today is Jack Spirko from the Survival Podcast, and Jack has been a longtime friend and colleague. We've met and hung out at conferences before, and we've always got a lot to talk about, so I'm super excited to bring you guys today's episode. And in this one, we are going to be getting into some of the current events, the sort of hysteria that is going on right now. A little bit about what is potentially coming and what is some of the things that you can do to be prepared for this. Now, Jack is an expert in survivalism, so we're not going to be talking about that as in what you should be doing to prepare for the next economic crisis. We're already here. So if you haven't done some preparing already, you're kind of a little late to the party. But Jack is going to get into a little bit of what you can do in this scenario that we're in. And we're going to talk about a bunch of things, and this is a really fun conversation for me. And I'm definitely going to have Jack back again because the thing that we actually wanted to talk about in this episode, we didn't even get into it because we just got so consumed with current events. So it's a fun one, and I hope you enjoy it. So Jack, thanks for joining me here on Liberty on the Land.
Hey man, I'm glad to be here.
You are like the best person to talk to with all this shit going on right now. I couldn't imagine a better guest to have on my show. I've listened to your podcast for years. I've been on your podcast many times. We just really get into it. So I thought this would be a great opportunity to kind of have round two, because I was on your show last week and we had a lot of fun. And I thought in this one, there's a lot of things we could talk about, but maybe we could just kind of jump into some of it right now. Like, man, the shit's hitting the fan right now.
Yeah, all of a sudden being a prepper isn't crazy anymore.
No, like exactly.
Practical preparedness, minimum 60 days of self-sufficiency.
Absolutely.
You know, all of a sudden that makes sense. I got family members who have always thought, Jack's a nice guy, but he's a little... I'm the weird uncle,
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I'm the guy everybody's calling for advice. Like, what should I do now? Like, well, honestly, go to the store early Monday morning. That's the only advice I have for you now, because all the shit that I teach, you had the last 20 years to do. I've been doing what I do for 12.
Yeah.
And I'm a little nicer than that to my family, but that is kind of the message. And like, they were calling me like 3 weeks ago, and I was like, I would be prepared to have to stay home for a month, and I don't consider that to be a big deal. Like, and I guess, it didn't really go in for most of them, sadly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess right now, if you're just switching on to this now, I think in the grand scheme of things, you're probably still a little early to the party. Like, you're definitely not an early adopter, but you're not the last one at the party yet, because we haven't seen the bank runs yet, and we haven't seen complete pandemonium in the stores. I mean, yes, there are people lining up, and there's been some fights and stuff like that, but I don't think we've seen the masses come onto this yet. What do you think?
I think you have some places, but not maybe to the level you're talking about. In other places, it's not even a big deal. And in a country like the United States, you can't look at the United States like you would look at, like, let's say, Germany or Italy or France, right? Because, we have states that are Germany, Italy, or France. So you're going to have a wide variation throughout here. I actually think things are going to tamp down a little quicker toward normal than most people think are going to happen here. I think if you can ride this out for a month or two, you're going to be okay. Now, whether or not your finances will be okay at the end of that month or two, I don't know.
That's exactly it.
The helicopter money's coming, but a lot of my peeps think this is the big one. Maybe it is, but probably not in the way they envision. I think that this is going to create a radical transformation in probably beyond where we want to go today. But I think we'll have some radical transformation come out of this, good and bad long term. But if you can hold your shit together for about 3 weeks right now, you'll probably be okay. If you can't, I don't know what to tell you, man. I don't understand an adult that can't hold their shit together for a month or two.
That's it. Well, I mean, I'm kind of concerned about people in the cities. You know, I was hanging out with my uncle and my cousin a couple weeks ago in Toronto, and I was telling them then, you guys should have at least 30 to 60 days of food. Both of these guys, you know, their fridge, they buy groceries every single day, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's dicey.
Yeah, New York City's screwed.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, screwed.
Absolutely.
I covered a thing that was out of like Salon or one of those types of magazines back like 10 years ago. And they called these chicks the fashionistas, right? The fashionistas, they keep their shoes and their clothes in their freaking refrigerator, right? And they keep their shoes in their oven. No, I'm not kidding, because their apartment's so small, they got no room for anything.
Oh, my God.
And like, you got to remember New York, and they don't learn. During Hurricane Sandy, and I was so impacted by that, I created a nonprofit disaster response team after Hurricane Sandy. And one of the things that did that is I saw people in New York neighborhoods that I used to handle as a salesperson years and years ago that I know are incredibly affluent neighborhoods. I saw those people climbing into a dumpster 48 hours after Sandy hit. And these were people, I guarantee you, the people that live where some of this was going on, if you would have given them $100 the day before to eat something out of a dumpster, they wouldn't have done it. And so, New York City, Seattle, those two are being hit really hard. The whole area around New York City right now. I think there is a correlation with whatever this virus or combination of viruses is with cold climates. That research seems to track. It doesn't mean it doesn't happen anywhere else. It just really, really, really community spreads well up there. And we were talking earlier, we don't need to get into it, but I don't think there's one. I think there's multiple variants, and some are worse than others. But the panic is worse than, no matter what, the panic's worse than a virus.
100%. The panic is in my opinion, the panic is the only thing to worry about. I mean, there might be there's definitely varying opinions, and I think a lot of people could come together on that, because this is, I mean, the amount of liquidity that's being pumped right now by the central banks, things like the actions that governments are taking. I mean, look at what they did in San Francisco. I read this morning. They've full on lockdown, right? Full on martial law in San Francisco. Yeah. So that's probably going to happen in more of the lefty cities at first, right? In the US, like you kind of pointed out how the states are so different.
Yeah.
But this is the trend, right? And we got to get through this next 30 to 60 days.
We do. And we will. And I think, I don't want to say exactly what I kind of told you off there. There's going to be some really earth-shattering shit in the next 15 days. In fact, a couple days ago, when Trump launched this plan and kind of gave everybody advice, but then we're a Republican country, not Republican like the party, but our form of government is a Republican form of government. There's a lot of autonomy in the states, and basically said to governors, run it your way, but this is what we think you should do. And he said 15 days to get control. That made no sense to me at all. None. With some information I had today, it makes a lot of sense. And I don't want to really go there, but when it happens, your people can be like, holy shit, that crazy guy actually knows his shit, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, I'm curious what you would do. Let's say you were kind of caught off guard. I mean, you never would be, in the sense like you've been into survivalism and prepping for so long. But if you were one of these people who didn't see this coming at all, and what do you think this looks like on the ground? Let's say we get into some martial law stuff. What do you think this looks like on the ground? Like, how long do you see desperation? Like, so far the food supply chain seems to be intact. I've got some friends in the know there. It looks okay. But
I mean, here, look at it this way, right? No matter how bad our governments are in Canada and the United States, they are not as cutthroat bastard as China's government. Even China fed people in the middle of the Wuhan lockdown. right? And they fed them shit like pork belly and vegetables, right? So like they're going to feed people because, if they have to get to the point where like in certain areas they're actually delivering food to people free, they're going to do it. But you don't want to be dependent on that. And you might be really damn hungry by the time it's over. If you've done nothing up to this point, it's hard for me to say, and it depends on where you are. If you're out where I am right now, I would say Monday morning about 7:00, go to the biggest grocery store and stock up.
Mm-hmm.
And you will find it isn't even that hard to do, especially if you don't go into the ones more down in the city, right?
Right.
We what we're doing now is we're buying a little more than we need so that we don't have to go into our stores unless we actually have to go into our stores.
Yeah. Yeah.
Buying on Amazon was a great idea 3 weeks ago. It's okay now, and I would say the shipments, the mail, that will probably stay open during this. If you're going to order from a restaurant, don't order one fucking meal. I mean, I'm sorry, but don't be stupid. If you're going to order from a restaurant, order a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a way to like, I know this doesn't sound very survival-y, but like, well, you screwed that up. That's
exactly.
what you're putting
you
me
missed
in.
the
Like
boat already.
You already messed that up.
I like this. This is good.
The first thing I would say though is most people have more than they think they do.
Yeah.
And they're completely focused on shit that they shouldn't be focused on at all, right? Like they're going out buying 85 packs of toilet paper or whatever, right? This is this kind of bizarre
thing
to
is
me.
so insane.
I think a family, if you go, okay, things are a little tight right now, should be able to make one big ass roll of Charmin go a week, right? So a 12-pack of Charmin should go fucking 3 months under ration, right? So if you got to get a little bit, get a little bit. Why you don't have more than you need in something that essential, I don't know. My wife, it took a while to get her on as a prepper, but one of the things she latched onto was toilet paper. So if my house catches on fire, it's going to burn for an extra day anyway, just from the toilet paper. So I'm not worried about it. But don't buy goddamn bottled water right now. What you have an unlimited, okay, they're not going to shut the water off, right?
No.
You have an unlimited supply of safe to drink water from your faucet. This is not a hurricane.
Yeah.
Get containers. Stop throwing your containers away. Clean them out really good.
Yeah.
If they had something in them that could go bad, like milk or whatever, use a little bit of bleach to clean them out. Don't put bleach in the water. Fill them up. Put them on a shelf. Every time you use water, take it out of your container. Fill it back up. There's no need to be going out and buying water. The problem is everybody's prepping for the last disaster. Everybody watched Hurricane Harvey and went, oh, shit, I better buy bottled water and shit paper,
Yeah, right.
And what you need is food. And remember, we're probably not going to have the grid go down. Like the government doesn't really like. They will take advantage of this, but they don't want. Like, everybody thinks the government wants this. The government doesn't want this. They want you stupid, happy, and doped up, and working your ass off and paying your taxes.
Yeah,
that's what they want. They don't want this going on. That's why they're trying to like prop it up right now. Again, they'll take advantage of it. I see some very nasty things long term in a shift here potentially occurring. But what you got to do is keep your head. Martial law, my advice is stay away from it. Don't go fighting the man right now. Don't go causing no problems. Don't go putting a militia together. You should have done that 10 years ago if you wanted to do that. If you're trying to form a militia right now, nobody that actually knows what they're doing wants anything to do with you.
That's right.
I just explained that to you right now. If you went out and bought your gun yesterday, no one's looking to team up with you. All right? Just a straight, honest assessment there. Keep your head and you'll get through this. Where you are has a great deal to do with what you have to do. So I can't give everybody an answer. Because like I said, in a lot of the areas of the country right now, you can still go out. You can go to the stores. You can get your stuff. And even in the areas that are quote-unquote locked down, you can still go to the grocery store. Right? You just have a curfew in effect, times you can't be out at all. So go when you can. And I'm going to tell you something that no one's thinking right now, and you better think this way. They're talking about sending everybody a check for $1,000. All right?
Yeah.
Do not take your $1,000 check the day it comes and run to the grocery store.
Because everybody's going to do that.
Yeah. You might want to run to the grocery store 2 days before that. And if you want to buy $1,000 worth of shit, and I'm not saying you should, but if you do, put it on your credit card, and when the check comes, pay for it. Because I don't know how it works in Canada, but here, all the government checks for both government work and for welfare and types of situations go on the 1st and the 15th, right? You don't even want to go to a grocery store on the 1st or the 15th around here. like during good times.
Right.
Okay, imagine everybody does that.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, especially people that are out. So I would go before that if you're kind of low and you're thinking, hey, my money's coming. Once you know the government money's coming, everybody's going to do it. And stay the hell away from things for a few days after that check comes out. But I also think about that time, we're probably going to turn the corner on they call the curve of infection rate, because it times in with kind of everybody else, everywhere else that's done this. Italy, believe it or not, is turning the curve right now. They're at the absolute peak, but their projections that came out yesterday, like total cases continue to rise, but new cases are on the downhill all the way. So there's some timing going on with these payments. There's some other things going on, but just keep your head, stay away from people. Don't get involved with groups right now. Like I see people going out and they're forming little groups on the street to like antagonize the cops and shit. Look,
What?
Yeah, it's happening all over the place. Like they're just like where they were told, no groups over 10. Homies are getting like 20 just so they're over the number and hanging out in the street corner just to antagonize cops and have them come out and video on them and stuff. Like, don't do that shit. Like, I'm all for jacking around with the police. Right now's not the time to do that at all. Like, the term I've always taught is be the gray man, right? You want to be the gray man. Don't go get kitted up in your tactical shit. Right? Look like somebody that is absolutely no use to anybody. Get what you need for your family. Don't overdo it. I saw a thing today in Hawaii. There was a store that posted a sign that said they aren't taking returns on certain things. And those were things like giant bags of rice, toilet paper, soap, bleach. So they're already preparing for the other side of this from people that went overboard. So the insurance companies in this country agreed to pay for all treatment of COVID, all of it, like a blank check. This is not going to go on for 6 months. And I think any of the government guys that are talking about that, they're either so maniacal that they like to say shit like that, or if they're politically astute, what they're thinking is if I say 2 months and could be 6 months, nobody's going to flip their shit at 3.5 weeks when I say we got to go another week. Like, crisis management is about controlling people. Whether that's good or bad doesn't matter. It's what it's about. And if I tell you, Curtis, you're going to be stuck at home for 4 weeks, you're pissed. If I tell you you're going to be stuck for 2 weeks and then say it's going to be 2 more weeks, you're really pissed.
Right.
Right. So I think overpromise, underdeliver.
Yeah.
I don't have a good answer for people that are totally unprepared, because now you're trying to do it while everybody's trying to do it.
Exactly.
I would say that I hope to God this is a wake-up call. And when this shit ends, just start doing what we teach. We teach things like copy canning. If you buy a canned food variety, buy 2 instead of 1 this week. Keep doing it till you have 3 months worth of that one thing, and then do it with something else. The other way to do it, and I kind of came up with this thinking, like, how can I fast track this for people when we come on the other side of this? Because I see other things like this happening in the future. And that is basically the daily ad per week. So most people go to the store once a week. They buy 7 days worth of shit. That's a bad plan, right? But even if you don't have a lot of money, I promise you can buy 8 days worth of shit. And if you're the bi-weekly shopper, you can buy 16. So buy 1 extra day per 7-day cycle every shopping trip. If you do that for a year, you have 50 days.
Right.
I think if most people had 50 days of shit right now stored up.
Yeah.
And that includes your free, like there's people that think everything has to be Mountain House and whatever. I mean, I have that stuff too. That's your like tertiary, level preps is what that is. Your first level preps are the stuff you eat every day, that your kids eat every day, that they're not going to cry when you feed them. And people are like, what if the grid goes down? Get a freaking generator. Get a $200 Sportsman generator. Buy 2 of them in case one blows up. Store 60 gallons of gas, and you can keep your food frozen by running your freezer for 2 or 3 hours a day, right? And then you're good for months. And if you can get by, this is proving that. If you can get by for a few months, you'll get through 99% of what could happen. This is like on a scale of 1 to 10 on things going wrong. This is like an 8.
Right.
Right? If it gets you through an 8, it'll get you through most things. It may not get you through a 10. But a 10's an asteroid. Right? Or a neutron bomb or whatever. So you're screwed anyway. Nines that you worry about nines when you're ready for eights.
Mm-hmm.
And getting ready for an 8 is like getting ready for a 4. You do the same stuff. You just do more of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I wish I could say, here's how to do that really fast right now.
Yeah.
It's too late.
So that's really good practical advice. What I really pulled from that is just think about what everybody else is doing and try to not do that at the same time.
No.
Because I don't think we have seen the true hysteria yet. Because I drive around my town, man. It's still pretty calm. There's Costco and Walmart are backed up, and maybe the other major grocery stores, but all the other stores are fine. And I don't see any hysteria on the streets. I don't see any hysteria at the banks. This is still just getting rolling.
Let me tell you this, though. If you are the person that's going out and taking pictures of empty shelves and putting them on Facebook, somebody should smack you.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Like, really freaking hard. Like,
yeah.
And again, I don't know why, but everybody's stuck on Costco, Walmart, and Sam's Club. Stop going there. Stop going where everybody's going.
Yeah, it's that simple.
Right? And again, going off times, off hours. If you have neighbors, by the way, like if you have arrogant asshole neighbors that you've tried to tell this, that like I could see not really worrying, but if you have like an 80-year-old woman that lives next to you or something, you don't have to feed her real good, but pick some stuff up for her. And don't barter it. Don't ask her to give you her gold necklace for it. Just give it to her. Be good to people that are worth being good to, because this is going to go away. People lived under sniper bullets for a year in Bosnia. Right? You can get through a couple months of watching reruns and reading books.
Yeah.
And even in Bosnia, the people that were not good to their neighbors, when it ended, things were not good for them. Don't lose sight of that. I'm telling you right now.
That's the social equity, man. That is so important.
I have been studying this stuff. It's been my line of work for 12 years now. And I have looked at every place things like this have happened. And sooner or later, it always ends. And people that are pricks always wish they weren't when it's over. At minimum, you're going to need to move.
Yeah.
I'll just put it that way.
Yeah. In tough times when relationships are more important. What do you think about firearms? I mean, I know what you think about firearms, do you think we're going to see, like, let's say this, hopefully, let's just hope that all this blows over in the next few weeks. But let's say it doesn't. Let's say we're in for a real long slog, and we start to see production lines slowing down, like food chain, supply chain stuff. How practical is it for somebody to consider having a firearm? Do you think that's something that people should be really looking at?
This is another one of those things like, gee, I wish you would have done this last year.
Right.
There's a big run on buying guns, and one of the things, as much as I'm a prepper and big on guns and own more guns than I need, I do that because I like guns. When it comes down to what I need a gun or 3. That's what I need, right? Like if you have a bunker and you have 80 ARs in it, unless you have people you mean to arm, you can only use 1 or 2 at a time.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So I believe in guns right now for self-defense, but I believe in guns all the time for self-defense.
Right.
And the average person will do better with something like a tactical shotgun than they're going to do with something like an AR.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of what I wanted to kind of get out of you is because this is what a friend of mine said to me the other day, and I thought, I don't want to run this by Jack and see what he says. He said, in a kind of a fallout position, if there's one gun you should have, it should be a shotgun, and the first round should be like a beanbag or something, like some kind of like a non-lethal round. What do you think about that?
I like the first part. Non-lethal rounds, I'm not big on.
No, why is that?
If I point a gun at you and pull the trigger,
yeah,
under U.S. law, it is the case that unless I had a justification for lethal force, I shouldn't have done it, even if I have a non-lethal round. Non-lethal rounds are really for the police, etc., under U.S. law. Doesn't mean you can't have them. Doesn't mean you can't use them. But trust me, if I shoot you, the reason I'm shooting you is my life or the life of somebody else is at stake.
Mm-hmm.
And, to me, close range at home ranges, it almost doesn't matter. Like the bird shot Cheney shot his buddy with that ended up being superficial, painful wounds. At 10 feet, you're dead. But number 4 buck is kind of where I am at with a shotgun. And, I do want to dispel the whole, if you just point it in their general direction, that's not why I'm recommending a shotgun. I'm recommending a shotgun because they stop an assailant cold, right? They are the fight stopper of weapons. In World War I, if you were a shotgunner and your trench got overrun, you threw your shotgun away. Because if they caught you with it, not only would you get executed, it would be a very horrible execution because of the damage a shotgun does. And if you have to use lethal force, you want the other person to stop. Mm-hmm. Lots of people have been killed by people who weren't quite dead yet.
Right.
And, I carry a 45 because I like it, not because there's not a 46, right? I don't do stereotypes. I also carry a 357 SIG. But all handgun rounds, compared to rifle and shotgun rounds, when it comes to stopping fights, in other words, one shot stops the fight, suck. Doesn't mean sometimes they don't work exactly that way. We all saw what happened when the old man popped a guy in the head that did a shooting in the church down here in Texas. Mm-hmm. But not everybody had, like, that man trained his whole life for that one moment. He trained his whole life for that one moment, and the guy that was there was an untrained idiot with a shotgun, and he still killed 2 men before that highly trained individual standing right there got a shot off. And that says something about what a shotgun can do. Yeah. The other thing is, I don't care about range at all for the average person, because if the person's far enough away that you need a rifle, you shouldn't be shooting at them. Right? You should be shooting at. You're not going to fight off the road warrior hordes or something. What you're talking about is somebody breaking into your house. Mm-hmm. Right? Now, if you're going to go out and about, laws in Canada are way different than here. Here, it's pretty easy in most states to have a concealed carry handgun. That's the weapon for that use. The other thing that's really good from a standpoint of handguns, it's easy to answer a door with a handgun on you when you don't know there's a threat, but you're just not sure. And not end up causing a cop to kill you or something like that, right? It's easy to conceal. You're in your own home. I'm not saying it never happens, because we had a cop kill somebody here who was playing a video game in the middle of the night. Mm. But anything you can do to lower the odds. Right. So shotgun, handgun, then rifle. But again, the problem is right now, like if you're reactionary running out and buying a gun, unless you know guns already and you just stop being an owner for whatever reason, it's probably not the way to spend your money in the middle of a food crisis. Yeah. You can't eat it, right? You can't eat a gun, and you can only eat a bullet once, right? Once you eat a bullet, you're done. So it's probably not the best advice for someone that doesn't already have the training, the knowledge, and the ability. If I have to tell you what to buy, it's probably not the time to buy. Mm-hmm. It may be soon. I don't know. But, right now, and when I say it may be soon is when this blows over, it might be a good idea to do a lot of things you should have done before this happened.
Well, I think the big message here is that this is, wherever this goes, let's hope for the best, prepare for the worst. But this is going to be a big wake-up call. I mean, I know it was for us. I saw this coming 2 months ago because I was held in secondary in the Seattle airport, and I saw the pandemonium starting. And I was going, okay. I started really thinking about it then. And I reacted then. And I'm glad I did, because, we're not one of these people that are trying to get canned goods in the grocery store right now. No. But it is amazing, though, because I still don't see it. I mean, I see it in some places. I see the hysteria in some other bigger cities. But it's not like, it seems to me that in the smaller cities, it's not as crazy as it is in the bigger cities right now.
Well, and it's not going to be. I mean, you can look at other nations where this happened to see what the model is. Yeah. Right? The model, like if you want a totalitarian state, I can't think of a state more totalitarian than China other than North Korea. And we have no idea what's going on there. He's probably, you got coronavirus, bang, right?
Well, what about Italy, though? What they're doing in Italy is pretty intense.
So what they're doing in Italy is you can't go out except to work if your job is going, and to buy stuff to eat. Mm-hmm. Right? That's what they're doing. There's not a bunch of Italian, militants out beating the hell out of anybody that they see on the street. They are asking them questions like, where are you going and why are you going
Right.
there? Which, see, this is the thing. Like, anybody surprised by this doesn't understand the concept of pandemic or epidemic. From the view of the government, this is the only thing for the pathogen that they can do. It's the only option they have. And the reason they'll be so hard on like, if a few people ran around, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But they can't let anybody do it, because what happens when you let one person do something? All of a sudden, everybody's doing it, right? And a lot of people aren't afraid of this thing. And I don't think we should be afraid of this thing. If anything, I underreacted to it. And it's probably because I'm so prepared. It's very easy to be relaxed when you're like, oh, we could get locked up for locked in our homes for 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
Well, gee, that's, I'll sit on my 3-acre farm and hang out with my ducks and eat duck eggs and catch fish in my backyard pond and read stories to my grandson and do my podcast. I mean, honest to God, I don't go out that much anyway. I don't like people.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, this is like, I consider myself an extrovert, but I kind of identify with all the ITNJ introverts right now. Like, this is not so bad.
Mm-hmm.
So that made me less reactive to this. I still think that even though this virus is a problem, the reaction to it is over the top. It's over the top. That
100% of the media is lock in step on this one.
Well, it doesn't mean that a 40-year-old healthy, otherwise person can't end up on a ventilator from it, though, either. Like, I don't see. Whenever I say that, I think that like a whole generation failed like third grade grammar, and doesn't understand similes and metaphors and like and as and similarities versus absolutes. And I have to continuously clarify when I say that. I'm not saying it's not a problem at all. There's nothing to worry about. But relative to the world, yes, a 40-year-old could end up with shredded lungs from this thing on a ventilator and die. Sure, it could happen. But a 40-year-old could get hit by a gravel truck tomorrow. A 40-year-old could get cancer tomorrow. A 40-year-old could keel over from a heart attack tomorrow. A 40-year-old could get shot in the head and mugged tomorrow. Right? I mean, people get the flu, and yes, I know, and I keep hearing, it's 10 times stronger. People that say that don't even know what they mean. But people do die of the flu, including young people, not just old people. It does happen. And if we covered the flu and flu deaths the way they're covering COVID, people would just jump out of windows and kill themselves. They wouldn't be able to deal with the stress. Because you're talking about something that's, this year, the flu has killed like 162 people a day for 5 months on average. And there were high peaks in there, by the way. There were, days that number was 1,000, right? And could you imagine if every day they told you somebody died in your town today from the flu? Somebody died in your town today from the flu. Somebody died. Another one. There's 10 people over here. There's a cluster. Like, you would lose your mind the way people are losing their mind about this. And it goes to the heart of what we fear. We fear infectious diseases as human beings because there are some that can absolutely decimate a global population. They've happened in the past. We know this. We have dealt with infectious disease since the first time a guy figured out how to turn a rock into a sharp tool. We have understood not what it was, but we knew that it was a thing, and we knew that it could come, and we knew that it could get us. And it's a very, very primal thing in us. A disease doesn't care how old you are. It doesn't care what color your hair is. It doesn't care how much money you have. It does whatever that disease does. Now, you take something that is, yes, worse than the flu, but it's not the bubonic plague. It's not even flipping measles. But you take a society that's been so insulated from having to really worry about it for so long. And by the way, so lied to for so many years over how many epidemics that were going to kill us all. H1N1, Ebola, SARS, and it could go on. And it was over, and swine flu, and avian flu, and every one of them. Oh, my God, you have to take it. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. And now you have people saying, oh, there was no hysteria over theirs. Yes, there was. Yes, there was. And that's why even when they have some legitimate thing to be concerned about, a lot of people are like, nah, because we saw this movie before. We've heard your bullshit before. We don't want to hear this again. We don't believe it. But then once people believe for that 1 second, and once people think this could get me, then it taps into that primal fear.
Yep.
And you can't let that get to you, because your odds are still infinitesimally small.
Mm-hmm.
Infinitesimally small. Even a high risk group, if you take it all the way back to the macro, first you got to get infected. Then you have to have the severe reaction. Then you have to not make it through the treatment, right? And you could say, well, people that go into the severe reaction that are over 60, like 8% die. Okay, but you still have to get into that you have to get in there first. And you can die any day from 100 different things. And just because you're aware of one of them doesn't change all the other ones. Right now, you are statistically likely to die in the United States, and I can't say for Canada, it's probably lower in Canada. You are statistically likely to die from COVID in the next 2 weeks as you are from all other accidental causes combined. That's how likely you have the same odds as you walk outside, somebody drops a refrigerator out of a window and it smashes you, or any other way that you could die. A car wreck, whatever.
Yeah.
And we have to, yes, it's real. Yes, it's a problem. But you can't sit there and obsess about it. I just put out an article. It's 15 things you can actually do, And one of them was turn the news off. Turn it off. I'm not saying not to pay attention at all, right?
Yeah.
But you could turn it on for 15 minutes. Like any one of the big three, turn it on for 15 minutes. You got whatever there is that day. They could put that shit in a loop, play it all day long. You'd never notice the difference. It's just a different suit saying the same thing. So you don't need to they sit there and obsess with it. We're at a point now, people go to bed, they're thinking about this. They wake up, they're thinking about this. And you got to let go of it, including if you're laid off from work or whatever. How am I going to survive? How am I going to get a job when this is over? You know what? Worrying about it won't do a fucking thing.
Yeah. Well, and everybody's in the same boat too, right?
There's going to be something to do. We're not all going to, once this passes, we're not all just going to sit here and go, huh. In fact, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the roads argument, right? Like when you say we could have a stateless, who would build the roads? I would be sitting there with a store, and you'd be sitting there with a house, and we would just say, shit, I don't know what we're going to do.
Yeah, what are we going to do?
When this all stops, everybody's not going to sit around and do nothing. They're not going to sit around and do nothing. They're going to go out and people that did shit are going to go do shit again, and people that do nothing are going to keep doing nothing.
Yeah.
Society will go on. We've been hit with way worse than this in the past as a species.
Yeah.
With way less going for us.
Totally. And I think the place that we really agree on this is that it's the economic repercussions that are the big things. Now, I want to kind of hunker down on that a little bit more, because I'm kind of curious on what your thoughts are on, we do have some supply chain disruptions in the sense that China right now isn't making stuff. They're not making anything. And apparently they're the biggest supplier of pharmaceutical drugs in the world. Now, I don't know exactly to the number how much of those pharmaceutical drugs are used in American conventional ag, but I would imagine it's quite significant. So where do you think this could go if China, to me, the big elephant in the room is if they keep not making stuff.
Yeah.
The surplus of stuff that they've had that Americans have been buying for a long time is no longer available. And so people can't get their Amazon order, but pharmaceuticals and things like that could be epic.
They are going back to work right now because they've gotten through this curve on this thing. They've gotten through it. Their numbers are in rapid decline. And there was just, videos of all kinds of people going back to work in Wuhan, right at ground zero. The problem is that most of our goods that come in from China come in on ships, not planes. And it takes a while for a ship to get across the freaking ocean. So there is a supply chain disruption, but it's not something that can't be absorbed. And as much as people hated Trump's tariffs, it's actually saved our ass because a shitload of stuff was bought in massive quantities right before the tariffs kicked in. And that got it here. So there's actually some level of strategic reserve there that's not, federal strategic reserve. It's corporate strategic reserve. We do have an issue with the drug supply. And China could really hurt us with just simply cutting us off. And there's been saber rattling about that. It doesn't really make sense for them to. Their economy needs to recover too. Without our economy, their economy's screwed. That's why Jack Ma gave us 500,000 test kits.
Yeah, I saw that. That was interesting.
That's why would you think he did that? Because he's a philanthropist and he cares about you?
No.
He's a billionaire that doesn't want his number one customer to die.
Yeah.
Right? So
right.
They're not going to do that. Now, the question is, do we have the stones, once we're through this, to restore American manufacturing of these things, including the raw materials? See, actually, most pharmaceuticals in America are made in America. The problem is the raw materials we make them with come from China. That's where the breakdown is. We buy the raw material from China, and they bring them here, and Johnson & Johnson puts them in a capsule, measures them out, mixes them, etc. I don't want to say exactly what, but I have a love-hate relationship with Big Pharma, because for every evil thing they do, they save a life, right? I mean, they really do in a lot of ways. And it is Big Pharma that is, in a way, going to end up looking like a hero here, and that's good and bad. And once that happens, are we going to kind of look around as a nation and say, hey, without manufacturing capacity in America, we're really at risk, and we're not comfortable with that anymore, just to save 3 cents a dose or whatever. And so I think you're going to see a return of a lot of U.S. manufacturing. We're still going to do some stuff from China. We have to decouple slowly, because if we're try to cut off, then they're going to cut us off. That would be you see what I'm saying? That's a natural reaction. The other thing that we have got to do as a country, if we're going to rely on imports for stuff, it can't be a single source. It can't be China. There's a lot of countries that manufacture shit really cheap. We need to broaden that portfolio of countries we import from. You take all the geopolitical out of it. Just putting my businessman hat on. I ran businesses for most of my life. I don't want a single supplier of anything that's critical to my business. I don't want that.
No, of
that
course
is the
not.
worst. And if I am a provider, I don't want one customer. When you were selling vegetables, if you would have had one company say, we'll buy everything you produce, you probably wouldn't have taken them, because the second they go away, you're bust. If you have 100 customers and one goes away, you don't even care. I mean, you don't even have time to care. If you have 10 customers and you lose one customer, if it's proportional, you just lost 10% of your business. You might be laying somebody off. You got to see that the other direction. You have to look at that from a supply side.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have a single supplier. And I don't care if you have 20 companies supplying you. If they're all in China in Hubei province, you have one supplier.
Right.
Don't mislead yourself.
Right.
Most of those companies are on the same factory floor. And man, there's so much to learn from this. Amazon, people that are sellers on Amazon are getting hurt right now, because Amazon just said, the whole FBA thing, that's nice, but if it's not like a household good or a needed, pharmaceutical or something like that, we're not shipping it. We're not warehousing it for you right now. They're trying to hire 100. See, and that's the other thing you have to look at with, what do people that know more than you and I will ever know think about the future? Jeff Bezos would not be hiring 100,000 people if Jeff Bezos thought this was the end of the world.
Sure.
Why would you? Because if it's the end of the world, even Amazon's going to eventually not be there, right?
Right.
So you see this guy taking a move right now. And I see this email coming out to everybody that bought anything from Amazon. We were there for you. Now, be there for us. Do you see where the next stanza of that poem goes, Curtis?
Mm-hmm.
To make sure we could serve you during the COVID-19 outbreak.
Totally.
We hired 100,000 of your fellow Americans who are not right now competing with you for a job that you might have lost. We would like to not lay them off. Please keep ordering from us for your staples.
Yes.
Right. And then they roll out their, cashierless grocery stores all over all 50 states. And, Bezos owns the country. And that's the other thing that's going to happen here on the economic side. Oh, boy, this is so obvious. This is so obvious. I can't believe that not every analyst isn't saying this right now. And this is mainstream analysis. This isn't some, survival guy thinking. The Fed is letting banks borrow money for zero interest.
Mm-hmm.
The stock market is at like 20,000, maybe lower. I didn't even look today. Some of the most blue chip companies in the world are on sale for half their valuation. How much longer do you think it's going to be before the Fed and the banks start taking free money and buying, and maybe outright buying controlling interest in some corporations?
I know, hey?
Why wouldn't they? Prop the market up. They can say we did it to help you.
But
they can buy it for if I gave you $500 billion for free right now.
Yeah.
Would you buy some stocks?
Well, probably. I mean,
why wouldn't you?
Maybe not me, but I get what you're saying.
Right. Well, you give me $500 billion.
No, but this
then at least $100 billion.
If everybody's doing that, dude, if everybody's buying stocks with funny money,
yeah, you drive the market back up. And then when everybody goes back to work and everybody's 401k starts rolling, you can just bleed out whatever you want to because you don't want to crash it overnight again. And basically they get money at 0 to 0.25 interest and get to use it like margin money with no short-term consequences. Why the hell wouldn't they? The Fed is going to buy all this stock that's super cheap under the name of saving everything. Then they're going to give everybody $1,000. They're going to pump money into small businesses, and this is a Hail Mary prediction here, but this could happen. The banks may defer payments on mortgages for a month.
Oh, dude, they're doing that here for 6 months right now in Canada.
Now, I think what they'll do here will be a little bit different. I think they're going to want to look like heroes for no real cost. So check it out. What they'll do is they'll say they're just going to let you skip a payment, no interest incurred, as though it never happened.
Mm.
Your last payment just goes 1 month longer. They might do it for 2 months. They look good. It doesn't cost them shit because all the money's being pumped in the backside of the bank anyway.
Right, yeah.
The Fed will pump the money in. Then it doesn't hurt anybody. Everybody will do it. If this goes short, and it might, all of a sudden everybody has a bunch of money. The restart of the economy is rather quick. And I don't know. I'm in and out on Trump. Sometimes I think the guy's really, really smart, and I can see a way that this works out really, really good for him. And sometimes the guy says stuff, and I'm like, what a flipping moron. And then I try to remember, the best way to be smart is to let some people think you're stupid.
I think so.
So I don't know. I mean, the guy, you can say whatever you want about how much money he inherited from his parents, but I guarantee you if I gave the average person that calls him a moron the same amount of money he started with, they wouldn't be a billionaire right now.
No.
They wouldn't
it's
be
so easy to lose $1 million.
Right. So I'll tell you what they wouldn't be. For all the stupid this guy's supposed to be, they wouldn't be a billionaire, married to a supermodel, who's okay with you banging porn stars, and president of the United States.
Absolutely.
Whose ex-wife loves you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, the fact that guy can do all that, he's got to have some brains.
Oh, for sure.
There's a lot of things I don't like about Trump, but
yeah,
I guarantee you I could give the average idiot in this country $10 million and say, go become Donald Trump. And in 2 years, they'll be at the bottom of a swimming pool dead of a heroin overdose.
Totally. Well,
ask Rodney King.
Look at Hollywood and all these
ask
people
Rodney
do that
King.
all the time. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Ask Rodney King what happens when you get people that don't need to have money.
But so the thing is that and that's just it. It's everybody's going to get all this money. Everybody's going to go. If everybody goes and buys stock in something, when everybody's doing something, there's no way that that's going to work out for everybody. I mean,
when's the last big pandemic, Curtis?
Was it SARS or was it NIH?
The last big pandemic, like this level, like close down the schools, alter society. When was the last one of those?
Well, 1913, I think.
1919, 1920, Spanish flu.
Right, Spanish flu. Right.
Okay. Yeah. Similarities and differences.
I was thinking
what
Great
happened?
Depression.
What happened? No, not yet. Right. What happened after the Spanish flu?
I don't know.
The greatest prosperity in the history of the country until now.
Uh-huh.
The Roaring 20s.
Yeah, the Roaring 20s, right.
The point where, Rockefeller, or it was Joe Kennedy, old man Kennedy, John Kennedy's dad, right? Yeah. He got out of the stock market, he said, when a shoe shine boy gave him tips on the stock market. That's how easy it got to be a stock market hero. The shoe shine boys were given, the guys they were shining shoes for tips. And you could see a replay of that. You could see, everybody talks about Weimar Republic. You know what happened after Weimar Republic? And they called it the Golden Age. Eventually it led to Hitler.
Hitler, yeah.
Right? Because our Great Depression pulled Germany down. But Weimar only lasted 3 years. And it became very prosperous. Everybody thinks Germany was like really hurting. Germany got to be very, very prosperous after the Weimar Republic fiasco. But they fell back on hard times because our country at that point had gotten so big, we pulled everybody down the tubes with us.
Right. So but that lasted 3 years, Jack.
It lasted 3 years.
I mean,
the Spanish flu did. That was the Weimar Republic, and that was a war-torn country with every single asset destroyed.
Right.
Half of its cities in rubble. I mean, and that only lasted 3 years.
Right. So, but we still might be in for a little bit of a long haul here.
We could be.
Maybe the illness and all that goes by the wayside, but the economic.
So when I say
fallout,
I think we're relatively short term. First of all, it will not feel short to anybody while they're going through it. It'll feel like forever. Secondly, I'm talking about not being able to go to the grocery store without having to fight for toilet paper. Right. I think we're going to get through that relatively quickly. It'll get worse, then it'll get better. The long-term implications of this, from the economic impacts, et cetera, I think you're going to see a hell of a recovery, very, very fast, V-shaped, but not for everybody. That doesn't mean it's for everybody. Just because the stock market goes up doesn't mean everybody has a job.
Right.
Right. And so you could see a lot of small businesses never recover from this, especially the solopreneurs. Like, I have a friend that's in the microgreen business. He's hanging on by his teeth right now because all his customers, as you might imagine, are high-end restaurants.
Yeah.
His restaurant customers are open doing to-goes. You know what? You don't spend money on microgreens for to-go orders.
Right.
So he's trying to eke out $500 in direct retail sales a week until this is over, and that keeps the lights on and keeps things running. But if he doesn't do it, it doesn't happen. And that's like, so tons of small businesses. And it's a weird version of the Walmart effect. So, the Walmart effect, when a Walmart comes to a small town, opens up, everybody loves it at first. But all the small businesses fold and die. And the guy that owned a hardware store for 20 years ends up working at Walmart. Like, you could see that kind of thing happen in a totally different way. The reality is I don't have a crystal ball. But you will see a pretty rapid snapback in the stock market because people aren't going to stop buying stuff. People aren't going to stop needing stuff.
Yeah.
And it's going to be really hard right now to get, like, everybody's talking about Weimar and hyperinflation. It's really hard to get hyperinflation when your production's shut down because there's nothing to buy.
There's nothing to buy, right?
It takes time to wrap that back up. And, giving every American $1,000 won't move the needle on inflation. It's not enough money.
No, it's not.
Look at the M3. The M3 is the total amount of money in circulation. The more you have, the more it takes to cause inflation. And the other thing, people have oversimplified definitions, especially in this world. Inflation, people think, is the government printing money. That's only half the equation. The velocity of money is very important. And the velocity of money is not just the speed at which money moves. If it only moves, you still don't get inflation. It is the movement and multiplication of money in a fractional reserve system that creates inflation in a fractional reserve system. If the money doesn't move and multiply, it takes a shit ton of money to cause inflation, a shit ton. And in our case, you're talking like a massive shit ton, like $5 trillion into people's hands because you're trying to move at M3, I think something like $13 trillion. You see what I'm saying? You put $1 trillion in there, it's not 10% of the total money. And then there's nowhere for it to go. Our money is created in this country not just by the Federal Reserve. And yours isn't either just by your
it's by the
equivalent.
banks.
It's the banks, and it's done primarily through lending for the purchase of real property, real
It's
estate.
fractional reserve lending.
That's what it means. When you go buy a house and you buy a house for $300,000, they don't give you $300,000. that they have.
No.
They write a blank check for $300.
Yeah.
They hold $30,000 in reserve against that. They've removed reserve requirements right now, by the way.
Oh,
And then
really?
that $300,000 is created out of thin air.
Yeah. And you're the asset. Yeah,
you just
came in and put
you did.
Yeah.
You became
your
the
ass
asset.
is the asset.
Your promise to repay and your ability thereof is how that works. So until the money is spent, lent, and multiplies, you don't get inflation. And you don't get inflation in an economy like ours overnight. You're trying to accelerate a rocket ship, right, with a 350 small block. You can do it. You can do it if you get the rocket ship into space. If you can somehow power that motor, you can get to a fraction of the speed of light. But you don't do it overnight. It takes time. That's the size of the ship you're trying to move here. So this is another thing I get frustrated with. I'll say this and people say, you don't understand inflation. No, I'm sorry, you don't understand inflation. I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm not saying it can't get really bad. I'm not saying it can't fuck everything up. I'm saying you can't do it in 2 months. It's not possible. And right now it's really not possible because, again, let's say I gave you $10,000. What are you going to do with it? You going to take a vacation? Sorry, you can't do that, right? You can go buy a car, maybe. You got no place to go in it, right? You going to go to a restaurant? Sorry, they're closed.
Totally.
What are you gonna spend the money on?
Yeah.
Stocks, or you're gonna spend it on debt. And that's
Gold
the other
silver.
thing. You might, right?
Yeah.
But the average person is going to pay their bill. If the bill is a debt, just as the lending of money creates money, the paying of a debt destroys money. How do you think they pumped something like $50 trillion into the global economy in 2008 and we didn't get any real inflation out of it? Because it went away. It went into a hole. They printed it. They canceled the debt for themselves. They screwed you. You got nothing. But how are you going to get inflation from a $1 trillion and a half bailout by Trump if you didn't get inflation from the like was something like 50 trillion or more dollars on the back end that happened in 2008, 2009?
Well, the way I see it is that there's a massive amount of money going to buy a diminishing amount of goods, in the sense that people, like, let's just say there's no disruptions in the supply chain, that continues.
That's a different story.
Well, but people, well, yeah, it is. But
right.
if no, but not even with the disruption, people are still going and they're panicking, right? Everybody's panicking.
Mm-hmm.
So people are going to buy a lot of stuff. And so all of a sudden, there's way more money than there is stuff. So why would that not result in inflation? Just
it
logically.
would, but it would be short term because now everybody's buying what? Consumables. You're buying a consumable. You're not buying a durable good. You're buying food. You're buying toilet paper, whatever.
Yeah, right.
And that is a consumable. It's an individual consumable, and you only buy so much to where the average person, like, you're only going to buy so much meat, unless you're like me with 3 freezers, right? You only can fit so much meat in your freezer. I guess you can go to YouTube and try to figure out how to make beef jerky from Alton Brown or something.
Right.
But in the end, like, there's a finite limit there. Now, you will see food prices, and I'll continue to go up for a time. But again, like, how long does it take a person to go through $1,000?
Not long.
Not long. It's not enough money sustained for not. I didn't say you couldn't have inflation. You can't have sustained inflation that goes to runaway inflation in a shutdown economy with that amount of money, when a lot of that money, again, you're replacing money. So if they send me $1,000, people always said, you hate socialism, you should send it back. Hey, screw you, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I look at it this way. Over the years, I probably paid $500,000 to $1 million in taxes.
Absolutely.
Until I get 1 penny more than I put in, it ain't socialism. It's me getting my money back. But if they send me $1,000, oh, great, I got extra $1,000. I might give it to my kid because he might lose his job. Right? But I don't need it. The average person right now has lost income that's at least equivalent to that $1,000. It's not extra money in the economy. If you had a $5,000 income and this month it went down to $4,000 and I give you $5,000, your net effect on spending is zero.
Mm-hmm.
You see how that works?
Mm-hmm.
Your net effect is zero. You have no more money than you did before. And if the people that do have more money than they did before are going to save it, they're going to invest it, or they're going to piss it away.
Right.
And anybody else is going to spend it on a hole. You got to think of it, they're putting the money in a hole. I can't make my electric bill this month. I can't make my rent this month. Here's $1,000 for me. Here's $1,000 for my wife. Now I can pay my rent. Now I can pay my electric bill. I got $300 to buy toilet paper and water with. That's how this is going to play out initially. What happens long term, I don't know.
Right.
Does this turn into more helicopter money? Do they start dishing more money out? What happens on the back end with the banks? How does that look?
I know.
Do investors start going out and buying lots more I don't know. I don't know. Like that, there's no way to know what's going to happen there. But any belief that these short-term policies are going to cause short-term hyperinflation is ignoring the mass you're trying to move, and again, the place the money's going, because again, I would say probably half of Americans' income is down right now. And there's not going to be, it's not really going to be that much more money in circulation, if that makes sense. Like, again, you put something in a hole, you get a full hole. You don't get a pile.
Mm-hmm.
Now you get a little pile here, right? It always seems when you dig a hole, you put the dirt back in, there's more dirt that came out of it. But in the end, there isn't.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. That's interesting.
I'm sure half your audience thinks I'm nuts, but
no, I don't. No, not my audience. I don't think
right.
so. Okay, so maybe one thing that we could kind of, we went almost an hour. I think we went an hour. But one thing I wanted to talk to you about, because I put a YouTube video up today about this. I think for farmers, this could be the greatest opportunity they've ever seen.
Yes.
Because let's just say, like, you just look at what's going on the ground, in the sense that people don't want to go out. Restaurants are hurting. They're telling everybody to stay home. What a perfect opportunity to start marketing your CSA.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like this could be huge right now for growers. I mean, the unfortunate thing is that it might mean a lot of farm plans changed on the fly, but it's not too late. You can change things up a little bit.
If you can't change your business on the fly, your business is designed improperly.
Absolutely.
Okay? If your business is not flexible to a rapidly shifting economy, it's not a question of if you'll go out of business. It's when. It's when. Because sooner or later there will be a shift that will kill you. And this is why I give my buddy that's doing microgreens credit, because the guy did like $100 in retail sales to people he never met before today.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay, so he's on track to make his $500 a week until this is over. But it's not because he had a plan for it. He's just good enough. Most people aren't, and he's also a solopreneur, right? He has nobody to worry about but himself. It's a very small nut to make. Yeah. If you have a bit bigger business, you have employees and what have you, you have to be flexible. I think that right now is a great time to market your CSA. I mean, we were supposed to talk about agorism, and then the apocalypse came, right? That was the original plan. We were going to talk about my methods of agorism. But, I mean, to me, a CSA, and I know you hate CSAs, and I think you and I are in agreement.
But not right now.
I say CSA, but I don't mean CSA. I say CSA because that's what everybody calls it. So a CSA is you give me money, and then you risk share with me, and I give you, a share every week or whatever. I prefer, kind of like a food box customer, where you have a kind of a set, this is what a box is every week, and they buy that from you. And if they don't want to buy from you, they don't buy from you. It's not, they pay you for a year in advance. I think that would be really hard to get somebody to do right now too, right? But if you could produce food quickly, and I know you were never big on hydroponics, but buddy, if you want to be able to knock out, I can go from today with seed to product in 26 days with hydroponics. Mm-hmm. And I want you to think about this too, much like my buddy. The average person doesn't need a full-time business to get through this. And they don't need a full-time business in their life in addition to their other business or their other job. What they need is $500 a week or $500 a month. Yeah. You don't need a lot of customers for that. Yeah. Yeah. And you could do it a very small footprint. I don't think hydro is the only way to do it. I just think that I would learn, if you're going to be a farmer, I would learn it at least on a small scale. for the dynamic flexibility that we're talking about right now. Because let's say that I'm running a little farm and I'm doing things kind of the way you used to do them, but I'm not as big as you were. And something like this happens, and I lose some of my wholesale customers. But all of a sudden, I got all these people in neighborhoods on nextdoor.com or whatever that will buy from me. But now I need more food because I have to sell it to them for less money. Because they don't give a damn that my microgreens are pretty red. They just want food. How long does that take a dirt farmer to do versus somebody that can run lights for 18 hours a day?
Well, that's exactly it. That's the advantage that's the big thing with hydroponics.
I can do 50 days of growth. I can do 50 days of growth in 20 days.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't grow all my food that way, but greens, man, I can grow. I swear to God, I'm not kidding you. I can grow arugula to almost too big in 21 days from seed.
Yeah.
And it tastes great. I can grow by the way, back when you were in the business, you would have loved these. I could grow a 26-day red sorrel plug that once the restaurants are open again, the chef will cream his jeans over in 26 days.
Right. I mean, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that's a tough crop to grow normally.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about micros. I'm talking about plugs, but still, like that's something you can look at doing. I have these tanks in my backyard. I call them ponds, but they're really tanks I built out of lumber and pond liners, and I grow fish. That's a product you can sell, or it's something you can eat. Like people are like, well, what are you gonna do if you run out of meat? I had 3 months worth of fish sitting back there that cost me nothing. By the way, I feed them about 100 pounds worth of food a year. Mm-hmm. Because there's so much natural food for them that they only need some of that. And it's not like I'm doing, because I'm not that far south of you, but I can't do tilapia year round or anything. I'm talking catfish and bluegill and stuff like that. And I just have tanks, other small tanks that I grow minnows in. So I'll throw 2 or 3 fish pellets in with the minnows. And like 20 seconds, there's 100 million minnows eating the pellets. I take a dip, and I drop the minnows in the fish tank and I walk away, and they're good for a couple days. Like that's smart thinking. Now that could be scaled up. I don't know that I would want to go in the fish farming business for money, but somebody else could do it if they wanted to. Yeah. But it's a source of protein that I don't have to kill until I need it. And if I need a couple tonight, my grandson comes over to be watched because he's out of school, right? I can take him outside. We could catch a couple of minnows, throw him on a hook in, and he can fish. And I've got dinner. And it's not fishing, it's catching. Fishing's when you go out to a lake and maybe you catch something. This is just harvesting. I've got, gardens in the ground and stuff like that as well, because I do grow in the ground. But again, this is why I'm back to indoor and hydro. I can grow through the whole year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? I mean, like right now, I just play with it. I've got a 4-foot by 2-foot steel rack running 2 deep flood trays and 1 shallow flood tray. I can't use all the food that comes out of it. Mm-hmm. I stopped growing microgreens on the top tray because I can't eat them. I can't even begin to keep up with the trays you can grow in one level. So I'm doing like seed starting on the top and grow out on the bottom. Not to turn this into a hydro show or anything, but I don't even think like if the person listening to this right now is like latching onto that and that's going to work for you, good, fine. That's not my message. My message is find something you can do to be of value to people that aren't another company, that are your neighbors. Mm-hmm. So where they look to you and say, yeah, I'll pay you for that. And then like, I said this in one of your videos when you were showing how to, and by the way, I've got ginger sprouting on top of my fish tanks right now. The one you did on ginger with that guy where he showed how to force the gingers. So that instead of planting a ginger, you were forcing these sprouts and replanting them. And I said in that video you put out, poverty is a choice. Poverty is a choice because anybody can make a couple $1,000 a year with that. Now, maybe right now, no, but it takes a while to grow that anyway. Mm-hmm. The restaurants will be back. People are going to go out to eat again. It is going to happen. Like That's another thing that you can do. I am one of these people that when people tell me I'm not sure what to do, I'm like, I can't help you. Yeah. Because my only regret is like I have 1,000 ideas and I can only execute 2 of them at a time well. Yeah. And I can only really, like most people can only execute 1 really well and really be masterful with it. So I do everything like a hobby and I run my business as my podcast,
Man. So here's what I think we're going to do, Jack, because we didn't like what we both talked about getting into on this was really get into agorism stuff and talking about following the sort of path of least resistance, getting your homestead set up and all. I want to talk about that again
Okay.
But we got so consumed with the current events, and that's okay, because I think this was a great conversation to have anyway.
It's one on everybody's mind, right?
Exactly. So I'm going to put this one out. I'm actually going to jump. I'm going to let you jump the queue on this one. I'm going to put this one out this week. I was originally had Tim Moen from the Libertarian Party in Canada. I'll do him next week, because this is just like too perfect for what we're doing. And then I'm going to have you back. Hopefully we can get our times totally dialed in this time.
Yeah.
and then we're going to get into this agorism stuff, because I think there's so much good stuff in there, and you've got so much experience with it. I really want to explore it with you in conversation. So how does that sound?
That sounds great. We'll get back together, once the apocalypse is over, or even in the middle of it. I don't care. Just everybody, in spite of some of my encouraging words, expect next week to look the worst. And I'm not saying necessarily the storylines or whatever, in your head. Next week, the number of cases, et cetera, it's going to look really dark. Hold on. It'll be okay. And if you want to even feel better, tune into my show tomorrow, which will be the 19th. If this goes out a little bit later, come check me out at thesurvivalpodcast.com, and you'll see what I'm talking about. I'm kind of holding out on that, even though I told Curtis back in.
Yeah. Okay. That's perfect, Jack. Thanks so much for your time, man. And I'm really looking forward to this next conversation we're going to have.
Absolutely, brother.
All right. Thanks, brother. If you enjoyed that episode, please subscribe to this podcast at libertyontheland.com. Just put in your email, and I send out an email every time an episode comes out. There isn't a consistent schedule to this podcast just yet, but it's kind of starting to get there, because I do have more episodes coming, and I've seemed to get out of flow with this podcast right now. But the best way to stay up to date is to just sign up on the email list there on the website, and they have been going up on YouTube for now, but probably won't be there forever. So yeah, that's that, and I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you in the next episode.